Chapter 11. Running. Only 2 hours until I was supposed to meet Malcolm. It was way too late to call anyone. No one, not even my mom, would be willing to meet me at this time of night. I was really hungry but decided that would have to wait. I had to walk, and that meant I had just enough time to make it to the lake. No way could I let myself be late. The opportunity awaiting me at the lighthouse was worth whatever price I had to pay to get there. I walked to the curb and took a breath. The outside air tasted almost sweet. I took 2 more deep breaths and began walking north. I could have saved time by cutting through neighborhoods, but I wasn't going to take the chance. No way am I going to be caught in a neighborhood at 4 a.m. I have a felony conviction for burglary and just got out of the county jail. If someone saw me, got the wrong idea, and called the police, I would have to explain why I was there. It would cost me valuable time, so I stuck to the well-lit main road even though it would take longer. I walked as quickly as I could because I didn't have any time to spare. My stomach was rumbling, but the only thing I could think about was getting to the lake and keeping the promise I made to Malcolm. I didn't own a watch to check my progress. That made keeping up a fast pace even more important. If I didn't make it on time, it wouldn't be because of lack of effort. It was really quiet. Occasionally a dog would bark or a car would pass. Other than that, it was just me and my footsteps. Eventually, a fast food restaurant sign revealed my progress. Its big electronic clock told me that it was just 1 minute after 5. I pushed myself to keep going. With the same effort it took to get me to this point, I would meet Malcolm just on time. Familiar landmarks appeared, grew bigger, and then disappeared as I went by. I reached May Avenue and turned right. Almost there. The long walk was taking its toll. My breathing was heavy. My shirt was covered with sweat. A few more blocks and I would be at the lake. Then I could wind my way along the east side towards the lighthouse. I forced my feet onward and maintained my pace. I found the path on the south side of the lake and followed it. In the distance I saw the outline of the lighthouse. I kept going. When I reached the lighthouse, I finally relaxed and looked around. I saw a car turn off the cross street and enter the parking lot. The car parked, and the driver got out. I knew it was Malcolm. I had come to know him well enough that I could recognize his walk as he made his way towards the lighthouse. And who else would be out here at 6 on a Saturday morning? Malcolm reached the lighthouse, and I was standing at the base in the glow of a street lamp. "Morning, Tony. Good to see you." "Hey." I was still out of breath from the walk and my shirt was sticking to my skin. I couldn't help but think that it would have been nice for Malcolm to have arranged a ride for me, but it didn't matter. Malcolm and I were both here, and I was thrilled at what could possibly unfold. My stomach growled. I regretted not eating dinner. Malcolm was dressed even more casually than he had been during group. He wore a faded t-shirt, shorts, and running shoes. "Thanks for being here on time. This is one of my favorite places. I do most of my best thinking here." "Tony, there are several different parts to you. Man is mental, physical, and spiritual. Exercise is one of the most important things we can do. If you can run, swim, or cycle 20 to 30 minutes 4 times a week, it will have a huge impact on your life. Exercise keeps you in a good shape, reduces stress, and helps you to feel better about yourself. It increases your self-esteem, and it doesn't cost much. You can do it outside and get fresh air. And you can even do it with other people to improve friendships." Malcolm paused, and I was struck by the quiet. After being locked up in the county jail for 3 months, I felt like I had landed on another planet. There was always noise in jail, and being here where it was silent and peaceful was almost overwhelming. "I've got something for you." He motioned to me, and we went to his car. He pulled out his keys and popped the trunk open. It was empty except for a plastic sack. Malcolm reached in and pulled out a pair of running shoes. "Put these on," Malcolm said as he handed me the shoes. I looked at the shoes. They were brand new, and not the cheap shoes from the discount shoe store. They were nice, name-brand shoes, like the ones I'd seen at the expensive shoe place in the mall. They must have cost at least $100. I never thought I would own a pair of shoes like that, and I never expected anyone to give me such a great gift. "What are these for?" "Let's go for a run." "A run?" "Malcolm, I just walked all the way." "I know. You'll be good and loose." Malcolm and I had talked about exercise while I was in jail. We'd even talked about going for a run on the day that I got out. But I really didn't expect Malcolm to hold me to that, not after I had such a long night. I sat on the rear bumper of Malcolm's car. I took off my old shoes and put on the new ones. The old ones went into the shoebox, and that went back into the trunk along with my book. Malcolm jogged south down the running path, and I followed. I had no idea how long I'd be able to keep up. There was no noise to disturb us except the sound of our shoes hitting the ground. Well, that and the sound of my own breathing. I had never done this type of exercise, and my lungs were doing double time to make up for years of inactivity. As far as I could tell, Malcolm had not taken a breath since he got here. He was in really good shape. The trail gently curved. We were near the parking lot I had entered on my way to the lighthouse. We jogged for at least a mile more before we reached another parking lot. There was a truck sitting there and someone was waiting in it. As we got closer, I could see it was Gary, the guy I had met in jail. He had come with Malcolm on several occasions. I heard the door close and watched him jog toward us. "Good morning, Gary." "Morning, Malcolm." "Gary, this is Tony. I think you two met in group." "Hey, man, how you doing?" Gary nodded at me and we continued the run. "Great," I replied. How else would I be at 6 a.m. on a Saturday after I walked for 2 hours on an empty stomach? I was excited to be here, but the toll of my night was beginning to affect me. I should have eaten dinner, even if it was a bologna sandwich. No one spoke for a while. After about a half mile, Malcolm broke the silence. "Gary, how's the business? Dig any good holes lately?" I laughed, but Gary later told me it was the same question Malcolm used every week. Gary managed a smile. "It's doing great. Remember the job that I was telling you about last week? I put in a bid and got it." "Really? That's awesome. Have you started yet?" "No, I just found out yesterday. We start digging first thing Monday." "Tony, Gary owns his own backhoe business. Just what? 18 months ago, Gary was in jail. He got released and didn't own any equipment other than a shovel. Now he has his own business with 5 employees, Malcolm explained. Gary said, "Well, 6, and that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about." I did my best to listen. My legs burned and my stomach rumbled. I strained to focus on the words. "With this new job, I feel like I need more employees and maybe some more equipment. To do that, I would need to either take out some of the money I've been setting aside or borrow the money. I'm not sure what to do." "Don't do either," Malcolm answered before his next step. "The money you've set aside is your reserve. It's for rainy days or emergencies only. Getting a new job is not an emergency. It's an opportunity. Leave that money alone. And as for borrowing the money, you're a small business owner. You don't need the pressure of a loan payment each month." I could tell Gary was listening. All I could think about was how difficult the run had become. They seemed to run with no effort at all. "There has to be another solution using your existing manpower and capital. You may not see it yet, but it's there." Malcolm spoke with confidence, but he wasn't cocky or arrogant. All of his answers seemed to make sense. I could tell he had a lot of knowledge. "Gary, I want you to get a book called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. It will help you run your business. It's a simple book, but anyone who runs a business should read it. It will help you set up a plan so that you can run your business smoothly. How do you know so much? I asked Malcolm. I read. By reading, you gain knowledge. If you take action with knowledge, you get a lot out of life and can make a difference in the world. If you don't have money to buy books, you can use the library. Our libraries are full of the greatest books in the world. Yeah, but the only people who read at my school were bookworms, the goody two-shoes. That's kid stuff, Tony. If you want to be successful in life, read. The trail kept changing directions. Why couldn't it just be straight? We passed a fire station, and then I could see a golf course on both sides. The course was empty. It was too early even for golfers. My legs hurt, and I had a hard time keeping up. Malcolm and Gary slowed their pace slightly. I did my best to fight through the pain. We made it to the far west side of the lake. The trail merged into a city street. On the left-hand side were houses. On the right, there was a brick wall, rock shoreline, and then the water. "Tony, where are you going to live?" Malcolm asked. I'm not sure," I spat out between breaths. My plan had been to take care of that when I was released from jail, but because I got out so late, I didn't know. I knew I could live with my mom. She would never turn me away, but I didn't want to go there. I didn't want any more favors. I am a grown man, 19 years old, and should be able to take care of myself. Going back to live with Mom would almost be like admitting that life was going to be just the same. The next time I see my mom, I want her to know I've changed, that I have a plan, and that I am improving my life. I want her to have a different look than she did when I saw her in the courtroom. "Gary, you've got a spare bedroom, don't you?" Malcolm asked. "Yes." The pain in my legs was really starting to bother me. I could just barely hear what was happening. "Is it all right if Tony stays with you a few months until he gets on his feet?" "That would be fine." We kept jogging. I wasn't sure what had just happened. I trusted Malcolm, but didn't know Gary at all. I wasn't comfortable living with someone I didn't know very well. As I struggled with what to do, a calm came over me. I thought of all the Monday nights we had spent together and all of the things that Malcolm had taught me. I knew I could count on Malcolm and that he would not steer me wrong. My concern over living with Gary disappeared. "Does that work for you, Tony?" It took me a moment to get the air to be able to answer. Yes. Living with Gary for a little while was a much better option than explaining to my mom what I had done and what I was going to do. I started to wonder how much further I could jog. I would have thrown up miles ago, but my stomach was too empty. We began the stretch of road on the north side of the lake. Each time my foot landed, I could feel the jar through my entire body. Each step felt like I was dragging lead. I could see the lighthouse on the east side of the lake. I hoped the end would not be far off. A few cars were moving into the parking lot, and the signs of life were reassuring. "Tony, where are you going to work?" It was another question that had to be answered, but I hadn't thought much about it. I really didn't have any idea of what I was going to do. Malcolm didn't wait for an answer. "This week I want you to go out and find a job. There are a bunch of places within walking distance from Gary's house. Be sure to read each day. The three of us will meet next Saturday at the same time. You can tell me about your job then." I nodded. I was so busy breathing I could not get a word out. It took all my energy to keep moving. I focused on the far side of the lake. We were getting closer to the lighthouse. No one talked. All I could hear was the plodding of our feet and the pounding of my heart. We reached the far side of the lake together. The road weaved south and went through a parking lot. On this side of the lake there were water fountains and benches. I would have done anything to be able to sit and drink. After all, I hadn't sat down in hours. The trail emerged from the parking lot and headed south. Other people were out now. Some were getting ready to run, some walking. and some riding bikes. I focused on the lighthouse. I knew we would reach it soon. I desperately hoped that would be the end. I was lucky to have made it this far. I couldn't imagine anyone wanting to do more than one lap around the lake. I had heard about people who ran really long distances for fun. I was starting to think they were crazy. Somehow I managed to keep my legs moving. When we reached the lighthouse and stopped, I was thrilled. But not just because we'd stopped. I felt incredible, and I couldn't believe what I'd just done. Wow, I just ran around the lake. If I can do this, what can't I do? I thought. It's amazing what I can do if I just take the action. I could never have done this run alone, though. It's great to have someone to do it with. I'm glad I don't have to be alone. For a moment, I recalled how I felt when I first met Malcolm, about how I started to dream and believe that I could do great things. Malcolm and Gary slowed and started walking to Malcolm's car. I followed. I couldn't help but notice the car. It was a blue four-door Lexus. The interior was tan leather. I could see that the car was clean, inside and out. Gary noticed me looking at the car. "Nice car, huh?" Gary said. Malcolm taught me the secret of buying cars. Find a nice used one that the previous owner has taken care of. Then make sure you maintain it, too. Malcolm nodded. Winners don't have the best of everything. They take the best care of what they have. Inside the car were 3 bottles of water and some bananas. Malcolm handed me and Gary one of each and kept one for himself. I tore open the banana and ate it in 2 bites. I chugged half the bottle of water. I would have eaten anything to fill my stomach. Man, I'm starved. I haven't eaten since lunch yesterday. I was able to get out between breaths. You didn't have dinner? Gary asked. I shook my head no and gulped down the rest of the water. I gave my dinner to some dude in the cell with me. Figured I could eat dinner on the outside. Didn't know I would be in there until 4 in the morning. Malcolm looked at me. You walked all the way out here and then went on a 9-mile run with no dinner or breakfast? Yes, sir. Tony, I do a lot of meetings. Some of the people listen. Very few read any of the books I hand out, but even fewer meet me on the outside. People that show this kind of commitment on the first day and stick with it are successful. If you apply that kind of effort to everything you do, you'll be unstoppable. Good run, Gary offered while gulping his water. I feel awesome. Great. Good job, guys. Malcolm looked at me. Tony, one of the things I want you to learn is that exercise is one of the most important things in your life. People that have self-esteem do estimable things. Gary and Malcolm high-fived each other. Malcolm went back to his car, opened the trunk, and handed me the shoebox with my old shoes in it. He also brought out a book and handed it to me. Tony, one of the most important things in life is how to deal with people. And you need to get to know the right people. This book will help. He handed me a new copy of How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I want you to read this by next week. Thank you. Malcolm always knew just what to do. I had wondered what to read next. I liked the other book that he had given me, but I had read it so many times I almost knew it by heart. His timing could not have been better. Guys, get in the car. Let's go have breakfast at my place.